All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network. Today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my friend, my compatriot, and this weekend my roommate, Mr. Stephen Green. Stephen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Josh.
All right, now we're out here at the Pro Sport Truck Series in Walterboro, South Carolina. And yesterday, if you go to the Joy Facebook page, you can see the live coverage we're doing of the event and all that stuff. And you told me during this live coverage, I said, how'd you get the nickname Honey Bun? And you said, it's a long story. He said, I'll get to it before this weekend's over. Well, now's your chance. Steve, I want to hear about it. Why they call you Honey Bun?
So I grew up deer dog hunting with my dad and my granddad. We hunted in a club not far from here, Yemassee, off the side of 95. And we've always had dogs. And my old man, for some reason, the last drive of the day, he'd make me sit on the truck. So we were sitting on the truck, and it was starting to get dark, and I heard some people come across the radio and said, hey, Bubba, that was my dad, said, Bubba, your dogs are going to 95. So I knew he was way across there because he traveled. I mean, he drove the woods as hard as any man that's ever lived. So he had just bought, I think it was a 1988 GMC Sierra. It was dark blue, four-wheel drive, long bed. And I got in the truck, and I went to go cut the dogs off. Well, you've seen the water and mud that's down here this weekend. I got that truck bogged down in a mud hole. Well, I wasn't supposed to be driving it anyway. I mean, I'm 13 years old, and actually I was 12. I hadn't turned 13 yet, and I got that thing stuck. So I'd seen them wedge logs and stuff under the tires, and get a grip and pull them out. So there was a big old fat lighter stump over there. And that thing was probably as long as this table, and it cone-shaped. So I put the cone-shaped end up under the mud of the tire trying to get traction to get out of that mud hole because I already knew I was in trouble. And I was going to take that. I was going to take that beating anyway. And so I got in there, and that thing had a 350 in it. And at that time, I didn't know what 350 was or anything. I didn't know it was that powerful.
88 GMC 350. That's one of the best motors ever made.
Yeah, it was strong.
Yeah.
So I got on that thing, and that tire started spinning, and it grabbed hold of that lighter knot, and it shot that lighter knot up through the bed of the truck, went through the cab, busted the glass out, went through the front windshield, took the pillar, and separated it. And it's lucky it didn't kill me. It's lucky it didn't go through the back of my head. I was just short enough to where it just missed me. So I sat there, and I was crying. I was crying like a baby because I knew I was fixing to get the worst whooping of my life. So they came on the radio, and they were like, they called me Little Bubba back then. And they said, where you at, Little Bubba? I wouldn't come on the radio. I wouldn't talk to nobody. I actually turned the radio off, and I just sat there. And it was about an hour later, truck lights come up behind me. Well, it was my dad and Bert Lodeholt. And they called Bert Lodeholt the mouth of the South. He lives over here in Early Branch. And he walked up there, and my old man was so mad he couldn't even talk. And Bert Lodeholt, there was a Honey Bun sitting on the dash of the truck. And Bert Lodeholt, being the person he is, he said, Bubba, you can't get mad at that boy. And Bubba said, what do you mean? He said, he just OD'd on a Honey Bun. And that stuck with me all my life. And honestly and truly, I can tell you this. Most all of my friends that I consider true friends, you'll hear them call me Bun. Most of them have shortened it up.
Yeah.
If somebody calls me by my name, they don't really know me. I'm just, it's stuck with me that long. And it's just, when I have my feed store, that's what everybody called me, Bun. Uncles, that's what they call me. That was my name.
I know. I've talked to a few people, and I've said, well, I'm with Steve Green, or I just got off the phone with Steve Green. They say, who? I said, Stephen Green from out there, South Carolina. Oh, Bun? And I didn't know your nickname was Honey Bun whenever we first talked, 8, 10 months ago, year ago, I said, I don't know, I guess. He goes, yeah, it's Honey Bun.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, from now on, you was Honey Bun, and everybody called you Honey Bun, so I called you Honey Bun.
That's right. I mean, this weekend, the people you see come up to me, that's what they,
What'd your dad say?
He didn't say nothing. We went back. We actually had old school buses gutted out on the club, and that's what we slept in. And we went back there that night, and I looked at the ceiling, and all I wanted to do was go home. I wanted my mama.
Yeah.
Is what I wanted, because I knew that was only going to be my saving grace. Because I think if he'd have put a whooping on me, he probably wouldn't have got off because he was just so mad. But we drove home Monday. He went and bought another truck Monday at Hampton, because he was originally from Hampton.
Yeah.
And we drove home. He never said a word about it.
As a parent, and you're going to back me up on this, I'm sure, but when my kids screw up and they don't take it rough on themselves, that's when they get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's when they get a whooping. That's when when they don't understand that they even done wrong, and they don't think they done wrong, and I know they did, that's when they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Well,
I try to talk all my life. My daughter, I've never really had. I could look at my daughter, and that was all it took. My son, he's like me. He's real strong-willed. So it took a little bit more for him, but I always said that if God blessed me with children, that I would just try to do better. And I always try to talk to my kids first, and I like for them to tell me, hey, I did wrong, and they still know they're going to get disciplined.
Yeah.
But when they do it like that, that means to me that they understand that they've done wrong, and let's try to grow from this experience. So, but back when I was a kid, I got my butt tore up regular. I mean, I was just that kid, I mean, and it didn't hurt me. Yeah. It made me a man. Yeah. I don't hold it against my dad. I mean, he, I'm sure everything that I got for, I deserved every bit of it.
I was blessed enough to be raised a good portion of my life by my grandparents, who had 8 kids of their own. My older brother, off and on, and foster kids. And I don't know, at one time my grandma put like 13, 14 kids on the school bus. So I'd done seen all these kids get their butts. I was the youngest. I was the baby. And I got done seeing all these kids get their butt whooped every time they done something wrong. So I thought, well, I'm at least not going to get caught.
I didn't want no part of that.
So I'd got a few whoopings every now and then, but I tried to be good whenever I knew that was the opportunity that I was going to get,
That's
was
right.
a whooping. These guys led by example. Now, my brother took them. My brother took several of them, but I looked around and thought, I don't want none of that. That hurts.
Yeah, I took a lot more than my brother did, but he was the baby, so, yeah.
So you talking about deer hunting with dogs, and one thing I want to talk about on this podcast is we're out here, and when we agreed to do the pro sport coverage and stuff like that, and I seen they were coming out to Walterboro, and it's a good haul from my house. It's an 18-hour trip. I've never been out here. It gives me an opportunity to see. I mean, I've been to South Carolina, but you go to Charleston or you go to Myrtle Beach or something. That's not South Carolina. That's
where commercial.
Yeah, that's where the tourists go. I've been there multiple times. And matter of fact, if Lauren's listening to this, my cousin, she goes, I love South Carolina, and I like to look at the old plantation. I said, ain't South Carolina. I said, South Carolina's at this coon hunt we're getting ready to go to, and that's what I want to see.
That's right.
But, it gives me the opportunity to see a different area and a different style of hunting, different dogs and stuff like that. And that's one reason I want to do this with you, of course, is you've been out here doing this for how many years?
Well, I turned 50 in September, and I've been doing it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've been blessed to hunt with some of the best in this state, some of the worst in this state. I've got to hunt pretty much every piece of terrain you could give me in this state, and we've got it all here. I mean, when you can go to mountains, you can go to rolling hills, sand hills, and then you're in this part what we call the low country. Mm-hmm. The low country is my favorite place of the state, just because of the people are a little bit different down here. Great people.
Yes.
Great people. And the hunting down here in the Low Country has been a tradition for, I can't even tell you how many years. I mean, so going back to, I started, my dad was a big deer dog hunter. So was my grandfather. And they, you know, I was introduced into that, and I absolutely love it. It's exciting. It's great for kids. It's starting to die out a little bit in the state, but we still have a lot of good dog clubs in the state of South Carolina.
When you say dog clubs, that's something, because our Western guys, our big game guys and stuff, they're not going to understand that. A lot of our Midwestern coon hunters and stuff, you know, there's no such thing as dog clubs where we're at. So these are just straight up big leases just for deer dogs?
What it is a lot of it's timber company land, and a lot of it's privately owned farmland. And you lease from the timber company. You know, they have tens of thousands of acres, which has dwindled down some. The club that we used to hunt in Yemassee, we had about 20,000 consecutive acres.
Yeah.
It was just one big old block of woods divided up by roads. And, you know, you get farmers, and it actually helps the farmers because they'll lease it out. You're helping them in a couple ways. Everybody knows the damage that deer do to crops. Farmers lose money. And it also helps farmers pay taxes for those leases.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win for, you know, a lot of it. But that's pretty much when you say, you know, dog clubs, that's what they are.
Yeah.
And there's some of these dog clubs have been around for, I don't know, 60, 70 years.
The farther you get east of the Mississippi, and I'm not a big fan of east of the Mississippi in most places. Now, there's pockets. To us, considering where we live, we got, I'm going to ballpark it, maybe 3,000 people in our county. Maybe in the surrounding counties, probably about the same number. I mean, there just ain't no folks. And when I get east of the Mississippi and you look at, you know, the Ohio's, parts of Indiana, Illinois, where you're hunting at the World Hunt, it's just so crowded to us. You know, there's folks everywhere. But right here, and I drove all this, you know, in the daylight. I stopped in Tennessee, of course, and visited with Hoop and Tater, and then drove the rest. And I thought, man, it's just so many people. Then I get to Walterboro, and then I can see where you guys are hunting. And I can see these big tracts of woods and things like that. And so it's pretty country in a pretty, you know, getting more crowded area. Is that going to be a problem for these deer hunters? Because, you know, it's the same thing everywhere. And I can't blame anybody for wanting to get out of the city. We've all been to those places, and we don't want to be there either. But, you know, these guys come up, and they're breaking these big chunks of ground up, you know, everywhere, Texas to home. They're doing the same thing here?
Yeah, because the big thing for probably the last 10 years in this state that I've seen is people buying 5 and 10 acre tracts.
Yeah.
And they want to get away from the city, and they have them, call them like a mini farm or whatever. And that's so when they do sell these places, at 10 acres is more than 1 acre. So they used to put 10 houses, a house on each acre. Now they're putting 1 on 10.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, you know, so yeah, it does affect the ground we have in timber. They cut a lot of timber in this state, a lot of timber, and that affects it. Yeah, the hunting, especially on the deer hunting side.
Yeah, what do those dogs do? I mean, because you got cutovers everywhere. You know, it's a timber lease. If you're hunting a timber lease, I mean, you just try to avoid those spots.
No,
there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Actually, your cutovers is where you want to be, because
where the deer are.
Those deer bed up in there, and smaller pines, thicker, the plantation type stuff. There's no cover for them. They're not going to be there.
Really,
they want to be where cover is. They want, you know, undergrowth, briars, protection.
Yeah,
and so cutovers are actually, if they grow up in if they cut it. It'll take 3 or 4 years for it to come back, to start coming back. By year 4, it's perfect.
Really?
So a lot of these leases, you just want them to replant and replant quickly so you can get that cutover and that growth start coming up, because it'll hold more deer.
Let's get into the coon hunting here in a little bit, but before we do that, because deer dogs fascinate me, and the deer hunting culture in the Southeast fascinates me. I'm yet to be able to take part in any of it. Next time I'm out here, we're going to line up a deer hunt.
You're going to come. You're going to come dog hunting with me this winter.
Because I think it's going to be. It always looked like it would just be an absolute blast.
It is. It's more fun than you ever dreamed.
Yeah. So take me on. It's Thursday or Friday night. You're headed to your dog leash, your dog camp, and you're going to stay Friday night, hunt Saturday morning. What's Saturday morning look like? So
Saturday morning you'll get there early, real early. And then you see how many people you have. You have standards and you have dog men.
Yeah.
Your standards, they surround the block that you're running, and then you strategically put your dog packs to run the deer out.
Yeah.
So they'll draw however many people's at the club. They figure out what drives they're going to hunt that day. We try not to hunt the same drives like only once a month.
Really?
We don't try to over hunt it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have been in clubs where the land is smaller and we only hunt 3 Saturdays out of 4 and never hunt and rotate.
Right.
And that keeps your neighbors good too, because that's one thing about dog hunting. If you're steady in there pounding the same tract of land every Saturday, you get some upset neighbors. If you're only there one Saturday and they kind of know and they're aware of it, and it works better. And that's a big thing down here in the state of South Carolina is, keeping your neighbors happy with dog hunting. And Garmin's, really dog hunting would have probably been demolished down here, but Garmin's have basically saved it.
Yeah.
Because we have more control, we know where they are, we can cut them off, keep them on our land, not off of other landowners. Because most places in this state, if there's a dog club right here, there's a steel hunting club probably on both sides.
Right.
And they don't want you messing up their hunt, which is understandable. So you got to keep your neighbors happy down here with that. But Garmin's have really, really helped us. If we'd have had Garmin's 20 years ago, dog hunting would still be as big as it is in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah.
It really would be. And then you usually do 2 drives in the morning, break for lunch, and some clubs do 2 in the evening. I prefer the clubs that do 1 in the evening, because about 4 o'clock I'm ready to go home, be with the family and stuff, get everything put up. But that's a typical day in the deer dog woods. And it's very, very kid friendly. A lot of kids really enjoy it because they don't have to sit up in a stand.
Right.
They don't have to be quiet. They can make noise.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun time for them. So I really enjoy watching kids get into deer dog hunting starting out.
That reminds me a lot of when I went to Wisconsin bear hunting, and just the amount of families that took part in that. It wouldn't just be, because don't get me wrong, my kids coon hunt and they love their dogs and stuff, but it's a Monday night. They got school on Tuesday at the house. And so with that culture, with starting these kids on deer dogs and stuff like that, you look at a gentleman like yourself that you said you was out there 12 years old with your daddy running deer dogs and stuff, and coon dogs, I assume, was a natural transition for you?
Yeah. My uncles were big time coon hunters, and I had to wait to a certain age to play in the dark. But getting back, one thing I want to say, you talk about kids and families and stuff at the bear hunt. Our club, there's wives, girlfriends, children. I'm talking about 3 and 4 and 5 kids pile up in one truck, and we put them with dog men, and they just they'll sit on the back of that dog box. They'll have a Red Ryder BB gun shooting at deer coming across the road. I mean, it's just fun, you know. And it's what, to me, I think a lot of kids need it. And we have boys and girls that do it in our club. I mean, the outdoors is good, is healthy for kids.
It is, especially now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a healthy getaway for kids.
It's no more important than it is right now in 2023 to get those kids into an outdoor sport.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
So, speaking of that, how'd you get into coon hunting?
So, I had uncles that did it, and just started pleasure hunting at first. And they didn't competition hunt much. They were in the local coon club, But they didn't competition hunt a lot. And I had a friend, Tim Kirby. He's a barber up there where I live. And I went over and got my hair cut one day. He said, "You ought to go to this hunt tonight with me." So we packed up in the truck and went. And I'm going to tell you what, I was bit from
day one.
So I started competition hunting, and really it never looked back. And but I absolutely love the pleasure hunting side, especially when I can, like around me, I got Tyler, his son Brenner, Brandon Kelly, Casey Kelly, James Taylor, and James Toole. That's our crowd. And I just love going pleasure hunting with those guys. They're younger than me, and I just enjoy it. It's something I enjoy doing. And then we go to hunts and stuff, and hit one here. And I don't hit the hunts like I used to because I made a promise to my wife when my son was born that I was going to slow down.
Yeah.
And then most people can tell you I used to be at one every night. Somewhere I'd be at one. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of got started in the coon hunting. I got to an age where I was allowed to stay out, get out of school and go. I could go till 10 or 11 and get home as long as I got up and everything was right, And so we did that, and I've just been doing it ever since.
When you transition, because we all make that transition from pleasure hunter to competing, was it right away that you wanted to go to a coon hunt? Were you reading about them in the magazines as a young kid, or was it something that you just kind of worked your way into gradually?
Yeah, I never did get the magazines when I was young. It's like I said, when I went with Tim up to a local hunt, it was a PKC hunt. PKC just started here in this state then, which Tim Kramer had a very big part in that.
Yeah.
He's always, had that for the state. But I went to that hunt with them, and they told me to bring my dog, but I said, no, I just want to go and spectate. I want to see what it's all about. And I got out there, and I was like, I could have won this cast with my dog if I'd have brought it. That's what I said to myself.
That's what everybody thinks, ain't it?
I said that to myself, and so they had another local one the next week. Back then, the clubs only had one a month.
Yep.
And we had a few clubs around there, so they had them strategically planned out where you could go to one once a week. Didn't really have weekday hunts hardly.
Yeah.
It's always a Friday or Saturday deal. But they had them spread out. We drew 30, 35 dogs, every one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really competitive. Good dogs, too. And I went to my first one, and I actually won it.
So you were serious.
Yeah.
You said I could have won that cast, and you actually could.
Well,
I said that for like 10 years before I ever won one.
I don't know if that was just me thinking that I could have won it, but I went to my first one and I won it. And then it was about 20 straight that I lost.
Yeah.
And I got humbled very quickly but I also noticed that I had a pleasure dog trying to compete with competition dogs. So then I went on a mission to try to learn exactly what it took to compete with these big time guys, these guys that are winning. And I'll never forget, I went to the Sunshine Jamboree when it was in Thomasville the first time. That was maybe 90, 91. And there was 200 or 300 dogs down there. And I drew out with my old pleasure dog. And I mustered up a cast win. And I don't know how I did it. But, I was hunting against way more powerful dogs. The dogs that you see in the standings and stuff, And after that, I started looking for a dog. And my grandmother and my grandfather, they were the best to me. And my grandmama said,
"You're all right."
She said, "Boy," she said, "you go find you a dog." She said, "I don't care what it costs. And your granddad will buy it for you." She said, "Because I think this is the best thing for you." So I went and I got me one. And I did some daggone winning with that sucker. and he died on me with kidney failure. And that old dog showed me what it took to compete. And I was very competitive after that. So there was a man named Charles Scott who lived in Lawrence. He was I guess you'd say he was a money man. And he'd buy me and Tim whatever we wanted. And we actually bought Crank from Kurt Aaron. He wanted Crank bad.
The plot?
Yeah, the plot. We owned Crank, the big plot dog, which I'm sure he wasn't full-blooded plot because he didn't move like one. He was a pretty bad outfit. But anyway, I bought when Nick Alberson was getting out. I bought Sand Creek Squealer from him. I told Charles, I said, I want Squealer. She was 9 years old then. But she was one of the most dominant cast winners I ever seen in my life. I think she was deaf. She couldn't hear another dog. And she'd treat 2 or 3 coon around every other dog. And I just consistently showed up with her. And I did a lot of winning with her. And we bought Trip My Trigger from Wyatt Wright, which we bought a couple. We bought the Rat Dog and the Ghost Dog from Wyatt. And I hunted Trigger. I did a lot of winning with Trigger. Let's see.
What was the name of the dog your grandma bought you?
There was a dog called Diamond Sam. He actually won that big hunt out there with y'all, Battle of the Breeds, Ada, Oklahoma.
The Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network is proud to partner with Cajun Lights. Cajun Lights can outfit all of your hunting light needs, everything from the high-quality Rougarou, super bright, super versatile. They've got a Bayou, which is a mid-range price light. And then one of my personal favorites is the Micro Gator. I use that for big game hunting, finding tracks, just general use. If I need a light on my head, I'm grabbing my Micro Gator. I've looked for bear tracks in that thing, lion tracks, cat tracks, coon hunted with it, hog hunted with it at night. I've even used it to work on the plumbing in the house. Super bright, super dependable. Everything that LW sells down there is high quality, and the customer service is second to none. Every week I'm getting notifications that they're adding new items to their store. They've got briar-proof clothing coming out. They got a jacket out right now that's really nice. I put the vest through the paces this last bear season and coon season. Couldn't be happier with that. I can't find anything there that I don't like, and I like dealing with LW Nixon and Cajun Lights. So check them out. You can go to houndsmanxp.com. You can follow that link to Cajun Lights right from our website. Check them out, folks.
He was a dog that was way before his time. He was a road runner. It took me a while to figure him out. But you'd cut that sucker and he'd be a mile in less than like 5 minutes. And he'd be treed. And what he would do is he'd go find a road and he'd road hunt. And he'd just peel off this ditch or peel off this creek. And I tell you, when I caught him, that's the dog I took to plot days, PKC plot days, when I first time I ever drew Scotty Engel and up there. And we cut him in this section, and he peeled right back out down about 50 yards down the road, and you could hear his toenails clopping the pavement. And somebody turned their light on him, and it was him. And he went right down there to the creek, because we turned up the hill about a quarter. It was about a quarter from the creek. He went right there and treed about 25 yards off the road. And that was when I figured out that was his style.
Yeah.
And most people hated drawing him locally. They hated that because they knew they were going to get gutted. Yeah. He'd gut you. I mean, he'd walk you to death. And but he always had a coon when he parked, every time. I never went to a tree. And he died of he had renal failure, and they think he got into some kind of chemical in a farm. Yep. And it cut his life a little bit short, but he was a heck of a hound. But at about that time, I started seeing what it took, to compete. You needed a dog that treated coons fast. The more coons you scored in 120 minutes.
What year was that?
Maybe 92.
Okay, so 92. Then we're hunting. You said he was before his time. I mean, there's a dog right there, and I'm going to give him as an example. I wasn't competition hunting at all. I mean, I was local UKC hunting when I was 12, but it was the same guys you pleasure hunted against, all good dogs. But you said he was before his time. In 92, when you lined 4 dogs up and you cut them loose for 2 hours, I would venture to say 9 out of 10 casts, those dogs are on every single tree together.
Well, this is when I hunted in. This is what I saw, and a lot of it has to do with the type of terrain you're hunting.
Yeah, see, we were regional. I mean, this is just a.
Yeah.
I never hunted over 50 miles from my house at that point, But that's what I remember. Even pleasure hunting, you turn dogs loose, they treed together. Everybody argued about who treated first, whether it was a coon hunt or a pleasure hunt, and then you went in and you done it again.
Yeah. So they best of my knowledge to remembering this stuff, we'd have a couple dogs that would always pack up.
Yeah.
But then there was always 1 or 2 in that cast that would get off to themselves at some point.
Right.
Now, in this country where I live, you've got to get a piece of it out of the truck, and then you want to recut and be by yourself. And that's how you win.
So nothing's changed on that point.
No.
Because that's especially right here with pro sport. That's what hurts some of our dogs, that are leash lock rule ready, is they're not quick enough. Yeah. They're not going to cover that coon out of the truck. Sometimes they're not even going to stay if they get covered out of the truck. And so you're treeing for a quarter out of the truck if you're treeing at all, even if you tree it, because with rain, scent, con, dud, well, not dud so much, but most of the stuff that we're hunting, you take that quarter out of the pickup because you don't know if them dogs are going to be there, and so that hurts in pro sport.
Yeah.
We've won a truck in pro sport and we've done well, but it wasn't because we were it was just different.
Right.
But right now you're seeing more dogs that'll cover out of the truck, maybe even cover off the recut a little bit and slide over there and get one by themselves and stuff like that. And that's the kind you said you wanted back then, and that's the kind I'd really like to have now.
Yep, and that's kind of what I try, because most of the time, if you think about it, you're going to be hunting around your house.
Yeah.
So you want your dog to fit what you're hunting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in big woods, he doesn't ever have to be with another dog. But as land shrinkage happens, because we talked about earlier, these houses, subdivisions, golf courses, where I live, there's either a horse farm, a golf course, or a subdivision.
Everyone gripes about the deer hunters and the people moving in from the city, but I think we need to boycott the horse farm.
Yeah,
them horse people are hard on us.
They are. They'll flatten some of the best timber you've ever seen. Not think twice about it. But so that's changed from me going to being able to hunt everywhere and having big blocks of wood.
Yeah.
Where I could hunt a dog that was consistently by itself and be okay. But now I don't have that. So if I'm hand picking a dog and drawing him up like I want to on paper, I want him to, and I don't care how he gets it. If I want 100 strike in whatever piece of that first tree I get. I just want to be on the positive side of things. All right, and then I want to recut. Because I know I'm going to hunt a dog that's going to be by himself on a recut. It's going to get quiet. And he can sink in there a half, 3/4, and be by himself before anything can cover him. And so now you've gone to these progressive tree rules, which I absolutely like.
Yep.
Whether I win or get beat on them, I absolutely like them. Because that keeps the backpacker, the cover, it keeps him at bay, is what I'm saying. So...
Well, I want to touch on some rules and some where the sport's going as far as the competition side of it. But last night we were talking on the live feed about the oyster beds and the tide, and I know it's. I don't think you understand how foreign that is to everybody from about 200 miles from here and west. Dogs getting their feet cut up in oyster beds. How the tide affects the coon. I was fascinated by that last night when you were explaining to me that you want a high tide when you turn loose in these places and stuff. So When we're talking about oyster beds and the trouble that they give these dogs, explain that to everybody.
So when the tide goes out, it takes all the water out of these creeks, and the moon pulls the tide out. So it's basically making it a dry bed. So these oyster beds are up under here. So these coons, when that tide goes out, there's coons go out there, then they crack them oysters and they feed on them oysters. All right, a dog gets out there and runs. There's not a tree within miles of them things. Mm-hmm. So a dog gets out there, and that coon just runs around, and it's called pluff mud. It's all black mud. It'll sink you up to your neck. I mean, it's terrible. It's the worst stuff you ever been in your life. You think you're going to quicksand or something. So them dogs get out there, and they have a hard time maneuvering in it, and those coons just walk across the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they just run around in circles out there, just run them and run them and run them and run them. I don't know if you heard Fish last night. You know, he was talking about his dog stayed in the marsh 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, and had to go get it. It's because the tide was low. So if the tide's high, it pushes the coons back up on the land, on these islands, timbered. Dogs don't get out there. They tree coons.
Yeah.
So at 8 o'clock last night, it was dead low tide. So those guys were hunting in the worst time of the tide that they could hunt on the marsh.
Mm-hmm.
But the late round, it was going to be high tide at 1 o'clock. It was going to be perfect. So a lot of guides down here, they try to pick and choose their places, and they'll stay away from that. And no matter how good it is, they'll stay away from it
during low tide.
Yeah. And then when the tide's right, they'll go hunt that. So it's something different, but
and the oyster beds with the cracked shells and all that stuff, they're hard on the dog's feet.
Oh, they're sharp as razor blades, bud.
Really?
Yes, sir. They'll cut a dog's feet up. They get infected because of all the algae and stuff on them. It'll just slice them open. Their feet will swell up big as my fist. I had a dog one time that she absolutely I think she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I would come down here and hunt, and it'd take me 10, 20 days to get her healed up, soak her in Epsom salt every day, and it just, it's no good for them.
Do some dogs naturally that hunt in this terrain all the time just say, look, I'm not getting in that fluff mud?
Well, I'm going to tell you this.
Can they just not help it?
I'm going to tell you this. They're not going to help it because the coons are running out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you what will help it. The man behind the leash, he can make them stay from out there.
Yeah.
He can send them a text message and say, hey, get out of the marsh, get back up here on dry land. The tree up here. Trees are up here.
It's no different than our cornfield races.
So it's training. Yeah. It's training. You want to train them. But I'm going to tell you something. Tim Kramer had a female called Swift Creek Ann. Strickland probably just told you about her.
Yeah, we were just talking about her.
We were just talking about Ann. Ann was the best at taking 2 or 3 dogs in the marsh, leaving them in there, and then coming back up treeing a coon on you. She could take a coon, and she could take a coon out of the marsh and put him back on dry land. She was one of the best I've ever seen. I've never seen one any better than it.
I got a theory. The trader dog's feet are so terrible, and they flat, and they look like a muskrat foot. I think they would get in that fluff mud and be all right.
Hey,
I think maybe it'd be like snowshoes.
They may, but I'm going to tell you what, those oyster shells, they take no pity on any of them. I mean, it's like walking on razor blades. And, I mean, you get those oyster beds, they're bigger around as this room in here.
Really?
Yes, sir. They're huge.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and that just goes to show you, and, of course, this goes out. I think, I don't know, I'm going to guess 30, 40 countries are listening to this podcast. And, of course, most of the United States. I don't know if we got any listeners in Hawaii or Alaska or not. We probably do. But there's such a variation in terrain. You're talking about shocking them out of the oyster beds and getting them out of there, and dogs can learn that, with the right handler and stuff. And I was just picturing cornfield races in July when them coons won't leave that corn. You get in them big cornfields, they ain't leaving it. Them dogs will run them things around and run them around. And I won't turn loose and stand in corn in the summer at home if I'm pleasure hunting. Now, if I'm getting ready to go out to Indiana for the Labor Day Classic or something like that, and I know I'm going to be in those things, I'll turn loose. But we buzz them out of them things all the time. Yeah. We don't want them in there.
Yeah, bean fields are the same thing. Yeah. You can't tree a coon in a cornfield or a bean field.
No, and what makes a dog, and I think you talk to line guys and you talk to big game guys, and they want that dog that's just going to take that track. Because with the lion, say Brett Vaughn's hunting dry ground lions, and there's one track. That's it. There's one track. He wants a dog to hit that track no matter how bad it is and finish it. And we don't want that. We have the luxury of having multiple tracks, and so we want our dogs to pick the tracks. It's a completely different situation. But these dogs that stay in them bean fields and stay in them oyster fields and stay in the corn fields or whatever, I think they're just that one-track-minded dog that, you're going to have to do something with him, or he's going to stay there until you catch him or he finally gets it caught or whatever.
Yeah. And I can speak for the marsh. There's so many coons that feed out there in those marshes. There's a million tracks, so they never lose. It's always a hot track out there.
They got that drive.
Because it's just about it's like God ringing the dinner bell. You know what I'm saying? Free oysters, boys.
Yeah.
And they all come to that's where they go. I mean,
as a guy that likes oysters, I'd be out there too if I was a coon.
Me too. I love them. One of my favorite foods. Shrimp and oysters is my favorite. Yeah. But that's basically what it is. It's no different than a deer feeder with a timer going off that goes click, 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 and there's 15 coons sitting up around that little feed plot. They come down, eat the corn, go back up. Same way with those coons. They go up, they sit up there in the sun during the day.
Wait till the tide goes
Wait till
out.
that tide goes, whether it's the middle of the day or if it's the middle of the night, and they're out there feeding. And I mean, so it's a million hot tracks out there, and that's why dogs stay in the marsh, because when they're running a track, they just run over top of another one, and it's just hot as the one to the left, and they stay there.
When we talk about different terrains, different country, our end goal on the competition side of it is to be under more coons than the dogs next to you. That's it. I mean, bottom line is, and people can talk about, it's a competition dog, it ain't fun to pleasure hunt, or it's just running wild and it's barking too much and it's just a babbling idiot and all that stuff. But in the end, in most of these casts, what people don't understand, the dog that trees the most coons or is under the most coons, whether it be covering, treeing, whatever, is going to win 99 out of 100 of those casts.
No doubt. And a lot of times, the covering dog that gets a piece of mine, gets a piece of yours, gets a piece of the next guy's, when you tally it up after 120 minutes, he's got you beat.
Yeah, and there's folks, and don't get me wrong, I hate a dog that covers. I'm sure you do too, and most of these guys do too, but it's getting to the point now, and this is one of the points I wanted to get into, is we tailor-make these dogs to rule sets. Mm-hmm. We have for years. We've done it ever since the beginning of competition coon hunting, and now with Pro Sport and UKC with no leash lock and PKC with a leash lock, those are the three made kennel clubs. Those are the ones that people are making a living off of. We can mold these dogs really quickly. It doesn't take but a couple of generations or a guy with a checkbook to go find the right dog to win the right hunt.
And I tell you something too that I believe in, the introduction of the Garmin. Yeah. Has absolutely made that so much simpler, because you're understanding more of how he's moving around, and where he's at.
Well, you talked about your dog that was running the road, and it took you a long time to figure out what he was doing. You'd have known that in 5 minutes. I'd have known it.
The first time I hunted him. And he was just so good at it. Yeah, he was really sneaky. It was just that one night he slipped up and he let me know, and but I think that has a lot to play in the way we have these dogs, the rules. We're always going to try to have a dog that fits the rules. Mm-hmm. There's been different rule changes, and most of them didn't work. And you always go back to how it was, because it was right the first time on most occasions.
Yeah, I agree. Except for the leash lock, I'm gonna let my line in the sand. Yeah. I wish the PKC would have left it off.
Yeah, I agree to that, because I mean, if you're paying to hunt, and I've won by the leash lock, and I've lost by the leash lock.
I have to.
And so, I mean, it's a double-edged sword with pretty much everybody. But and being honest, if you're just being honest with yourself, you want the dog and the dogs against you to be able to go, because it's like this. On the leash, he's not going to make any mistakes. Yeah. But off the leash, he's got that opportunity to go tree a slick, get out of the pocket, and you still have a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I like not having a leash lock. I'm all for the not the leash lock. But I tell you one thing that I don't like, and I don't hunt as many hunts as I used to, and I don't really have as big a voice in it or say so, because a lot of guys that are hunting. But I absolutely cannot stand when people try to make up a rule to fit their dog at the time of the dog they're hunting. And then the next dog that they have, they want to change it because it doesn't fit them.
Yep, you see that all the time.
So I really don't like that part of it. I just wish you'd leave the rules alone.
Yep.
And
I actually wanted to. I think UKC does it right in that they change rules by vote one time every year.
Yep.
I think PKC should follow suit. I believe Pro Sport should as well, as far as just have us. My proposal was you can only change a rule between October and October with a 100% unanimous vote from the national directors. It's the only time you can change it. In October at the World Hunt, all the national directors, they sit down, they vote on the rule changes, and a majority can change it then. That way it's had a year to sit in there, to see what's effective, see what isn't, and then if the members don't like it, then they can voice their opinions to the national directors. The national directors can vote on it once a year. If you bring a ballot measure up between October and October in the competition year, it's got to be unanimous. Yeah. One person votes no, then it's not. Then it's a no.
I was reading over last night in between while we were waiting on Cass to come in from the early round to the late round. I was reading over Pro Sports rules just because it was just something for me to do, And honestly, to me, their rules are right.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't see one place where I would say, hey, that rule stinks. They need to change it. I think that the thing that they've done that most of the other kennel clubs haven't done is they listen to people, and they listen to the right people, and they establish those rules, and those rules work. Because honestly, and I'm going to say this, and I might get some slash back on it, but the rules that they have are the old PKC rules, basically. It's cut and dry. There's it's right there, black and white. And
the only thing with Pro Sport is you're going to walk a lot in some cases. You're going to walk extra than you would in PKC, and it's the PKC style of hound, and so it's going to kind of up the ante as opposed to a lot of little local UKC hunts where dogs are more liable to be together. But as people, and I see this going on this year, there are more dogs that are in that first tree together. We turned loose down at Buffalo at that Pro Classic $6,500 entry, and we had 4 dogs on the same tree multiple times, 2-3 times. And you never seen that 2 years ago. Right. Never seen it. But these guys are seeing with Pro Sport, these are the same guys that are hunting Pro Sport, they're seeing that these dogs have got to be treed. They got to get a piece of that first coon. You don't have the opportunity with someone that struck for 100 and that trails around all night and to leash lock them, because the dog that treated a coon for 150 may get a piece of your 200, and now you're screwed because you've trailed around for 2 hours, you've treated for 200, that dog comes in for a quarter, and you're beat.
Yep.
And so it takes a while for the dogs to evolve and for the handlers to evolve and stuff like that. But in the end, what we really want, Stephen, in my opinion, is dogs that are a pleasure to hunt through the week, and that you can still go win a truck
on the weekend,
or you can win $100,000 on the weekend. That's the end goal.
That is absolutely what it is. It's, I agree with you 100% because that's what I want.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just put, if I want to hunt during the week and then I get a wild hair and I say, you know what, they got a Pro Sport hunt down here in Walterboro right here.
Right.
I'm going to give it a whirl, and I can compete. I feel like I can compete. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, I've got a dog right now that I feel I could compete anywhere with him. Now, do I? No, I don't. I don't, because of family, and I work for Joy and I work for another company, and family time.
Yeah.
So, it's easier for me to be with my family till 10 o'clock at night and they go to bed, and I go coon hunting till daylight, come back home, and I enjoy that.
Yep.
And I still enjoy the competitive side. I do. I always will. Even when I can't go, I still keep up with it. I know who's hunting what. Mm-hmm. I love the competitive side of this sport. And this weekend, I hunted the Grand American because it's just my thing. I've done it all my life. But that weekend, I had 2 great casts. Probably 2 of the best casts I've had in years. Sportsmanship was out of this world. It was, everybody was, they did what they were supposed to do. They struck their dogs. They treated their dogs. It was no arguing, no bickering. It was just enjoyable. I see a lot of guys down here this weekend that I've known for years and years and years. And most of them I've never had a crossword with any of them. There's a few of them down there that I have. But for the most part of it, the competitiveness and the sportsmanship. And if you got a good dog, you don't have to pull all that crap, man.
No, you don't.
You don't have to be so extra. Just strike and trim.
Yeah.
And everything works itself out. But for the most part, I hear people always talking about they got cheated. They hate competition hunting. It's really and truly, they really didn't get cheated. It's a couple things. They needed a better dog, or they need to learn the rules, or they're just not man enough to accept that they got beat.
It's usually the third one.
So
it usually is. I mean, just to be honest, it's usually the third one.
And if I get beat, if Josh Michaelis takes me behind the woodshed one night, I'm going to shake his hand because he deserved it that night. So, I mean, I think if we get more of that, and that's just like Maynard. I use Maynard. Maynard's always in a good mood, joking, we cut up. That's the kind of stuff you like to go to a hunt. I mean, it's camaraderie.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to win. If you weren't, you're in the wrong sport because it's competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably as competitive as any sport out there.
Yeah.
I mean, night in and night out. So
there's 2 sides of it, and you'll hear it right here. Just go through all the truth episodes where we talk about competition coon hunting, and Kurt was a fantastic example where he said, I'm not your buddy for those 2 hours. That's fine. I'm not your buddy for those 2 hours either. Sometimes I'll cut up and stuff like that, but I'm trying to win that cast. I'm trying to win. But also, when that's over, congratulations to the man that did win.
Exactly.
If I win, congratulations to me, and I'm glad I did. And it's all over, And we may get, and I don't get heated. Very rarely will I get heated. I'm sure you're the same way. But you'll disagree during a cast.
Age is taking care of a lot of that.
It does. Age takes care of most of it for everybody. Even Finley has calmed down in a cast. But, and I see these young and hungry guys, and I've drawn them, and, during those 2 hours, I'm just like, gee whiz, this guy's doing this, and this guy's doing that, and you're griping. But he's young, and he's hungry, and he's usually got a decent dog, and he's doing the best to win with it. And I kind of tip my hat to him, too, because, I was there. You were there.
Yeah. You
see that I'm here to win, and I'm not here to make friends attitude, and I respect that just as much as I do the Randy Steadman that just comes and competes and bicker and argue and make fun of you all night, and then if he beats you, he beats you, and if he don't, he had a good time anyway. You respect all that. There's both sides of it.
I drew a kid Saturday night at the Grand American, and he was just like you said. He was hunting a black dog, and that dog, he split every drop.
Yeah.
Looked amazing. And at the end, he made a bad call, and he flew off the handle. He couldn't accept it.
Yeah.
But, he's like you said, he's just hungry, and he's got a good dog, and that's just competitiveness out of him.
And you got to respect the fact that he got that dog ready.
Yeah,
and he got that dog right.
I did. I tried to talk to him a little bit afterwards, but he was so hot that I was smart enough to know that he just needed to go on and drive back to wherever he came from, and maybe he would see it. But some of them do and some of them don't.
Yeah.
But
there's a few that
I'll take nothing from him that he was the dog to beat in that cast, even though my dog won it at the end. He was the dog to beat in that cast. And I respected that young man because I knew he was hunting that dog hard, had him prepared for that hunt. And, you know, it's like you said, they're young and they're hungry.
Yep.
And I was there. I know I was in his shoes. I was the same person. I was in his shoes. But it took me a little while to understand that, you know, I can't. If I make a mistake, it's on me. It's not the other three people in that cast. It was on me. And
I remember one night, and I've told this story, I think, on the podcast. And I was at a party on a Friday night and ran my mouth, and some kid just beat me about half to death. And I show up Saturday night to this coon hunt, and the whole side of my face swelled up. I'm still concussed. I mean, this kid, and I had it coming. He gave it to me, and I had it coming. And I can't look up in a tree very long without blacking out. And so I kind of pulled some funny stuff. I'm 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. And I pulled some funny stuff on a couple trees. And at the end of this hunt, I was hunting a little dog, and she got split. And she's on a big maple. I know she's got a coon. Good dog. I'd got her ready, and I'd been hunting hard. And I couldn't shine this tree and see straight or nothing. And I asked that guy that was handling it, and I said, hey, you going to help me shine this tree? Because you shouldn't have messed up on that. He remembered that very first drop where I pulled some funny stuff.
That's right.
And I've drawn that guy 100 times since then, and we've been friends ever since then. He just looked at me as this young, dumb, ignorant kid that didn't know no better, and he realized I've evolved and I've got better and I've become a better human being and a father and stuff like that. And that's how everybody is.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
So,
absolutely.
You talking about your Grand American, and you talking about you got a dog at home that competes. So tell us about Rube.
Well, he's Murray Reagan bred him. He's out of Hatchie River Dottie in Main Street Track. It's the #1 historical cross in the English breed. And the thing that I look the most for in a dog, and I'm not colorblind, I hunt any of them. I like a winner.
Yeah.
But the thing that I look most, my #1 thing is I don't look for mouth. I look for heart. They gotta have heart. If, you know, I want a dog that when he wants to give up, he doesn't give up on me. He's always given me that opportunity, whether it be the last 10 minutes of the cast, to win a cast. So Rube he's 150% heart. Yeah. I mean, this dog, when I got this dog, he had everything but COVID-19. He
may have had that.
That's
too.
what Michigan State wrote on the blood work. I did over $2,000 worth of blood work on that dog. He couldn't even hold his head up, and he would still go tree you coons. That's how I knew that he would stay at my house till he died, because that dog, I took him, there was no way in the world he felt like going hunting. He loaded up in that dog box. We went, I turned him loose. He went out there and just fell treed. He never has done that since. He had a coon. I shot it out to him. I took him home, and I said, oh, boy, I said, me and you're going to get healthy. We're going to get well. And I said, then you're going to really show me what you're about. Mm-hmm. So I have a wonderful vet, Dr. Gruber, at Aiken Veterinary Clinic. He's actually from the Mississippi Delta, bird dog man, and he understands sporting dogs. And that's hard to find this day in the veterinarian world. They're all about lap dogs, and you know,
that's who pays their bills.
So and you know, he understands it, and he actually, I mean, he and I text each other. I'll talk to him about this. What do you think about this, and he'll lead me in the right direction. But anyway, so he and I got Rube straight. Rube's thyroid was at 0.57. So I'll give you a funny story. So that was about the time that I came on with Joy. Mm-hmm. And so I was giving him Siloxane, Joy dog food, 24/20, and clean water every day. He told me, he said, it's a must. You give him fresh water every day. So I did that, and we went 6 weeks and had his first blood test. He was at 0.87. And he said, oh, he's doing better. He said, but we're going to up the siloxane. And I said, 0.57 to 0.87, and you're looking at me and smiling and saying, he's doing better. Because I'm thinking he ain't going to know better. And so it went about 6 months before he got me to come back in the next time. And we went in there, and he came back. He flings the door open, and he says, what are you giving this dog? And I'm like, I feel like I've got a gun held to me. He goes, I said, I ain't giving him nothing but Joy dog food, siloxane, and fresh water. He said, nah. He said, you're giving him something. What are you giving him? I said, Joy dog food, siloxane, fresh water. He said, you got a bag of Joy dog food I can see? I said, yeah. I said, matter of fact, the feed store across the road here, I got it in there. So I went over there and got a bag, and he turns it over, and he's studying it. Mm-hmm. It's just quiet there for 15, 20 minutes. He opens it up. He looks at it. He said, can I have this bag of dog food? I said, you sure can.
Take $55 off my bill.
I said, for 48, and I didn't pay the bill. You know how much the bill was?
How much?
$1,600.
Oh, geez.
I said, I tell you what, you sure can. I said, for $48, it's yours. He looked at me and said, what? I said, you just charged me $1,600. Yeah. And he said, okay. So anyway, he feeds Joy now.
Yeah.
And he said he thinks that, because getting back to it, Rube's thyroid was 3.45. And he told me, he said all he could think is that the Joy was formulated correctly. He was getting enough iodine to suppress his thyroid and make his thyroid work. Because basically it just stops working when they get that low. So he just said it put it back in full gear and where it needed to be. So he told me, he said, take him off the siloxane. I took him off the siloxane, and to be honest with you, he was a 10 times better dog than he was. Yeah. And he really started performing. So I took him to the Grand American that first year.
Kudos to your vet for telling you to take him off the siloxane.
Yeah.
Because not very many of them will do that. I've done that with 2 dogs now.
I've got a great vet. He really is. But I took him to the Grand American that first year that I had to work for Joy. So I said, well, I'm going to hunt. So I hunted him Friday night. I got a cast win with him Friday night. Saturday night I didn't go. I didn't hunt. I went home. The next year I get double cast wins. And then this year, Tyler hunted him. He finished 7th Friday night, 16th Saturday night, double cast wins, and we were 5th of the Final 4. So
just about.
He was just there knocking on the door, which we had a couple opportunities.
If you'd had a good handler.
Well, no.
I'm just giving Tyler grief.
I'm going to tell you, Tyler did a wonderful job.
He does.
He did a wonderful job handling him. Brenner's probably a better handler than Tyler, though. Just saying. But anyway, on Friday night, this goes back to sportsmanship. Friday night, JT, he hunts the No Limit Sniper dog.
Yeah.
James Thomas. On my last tree, Rube was split from his dog. And I had a big old nest and a cow's cock up there, and I'm thinking this thing could have held a condor. It wasn't a squirrel bed. It was huge. So JT saw the coon, and me and the guide were standing out the paved road, and we could see the coon, but Tyler and them didn't see the coon, so it got circled. So if I'd had that, if he'd got that coon plus, he'd have been
in the top 4.
Saturday night he had 2 like that. He had one in a pine tree that Judge saw, the guide saw, and one of the other guys saw, but the other 2 didn't see. So that would have got him in, and then he had another tree that night that he had a coon in that 2-2. Yeah. So, and but I'll take it how it is. Every bit of it was honest. It was done great. Sportsmanship, like I said, was great. So he's just I don't know. I like him a lot, Josh.
That's all that matters.
I mean, I do. He wins more than he loses when he goes to hunts. If he was run up and down the road, probably people, would know more about him.
Yeah.
But he's a full littermate brother to Main Street Blue that Trevor Hack and Grant Whitmer had. So he'd be Kraken's uncle. He's got another littermate out there in Mississippi. He's a Grand Night champion called Hollywood. They say, I've never hunted with him, but they say he's a heck of a hound. But I've owned 3 Dottie hounds. I won one off Chrome, one off Awesome, and then this one off of Jack. And the 3 things that they had in similar, they were different, but the 3 things they had similar was their heart. They all had that heart. And
we were talking about it last night, and I always said, just give me all the heart and half the talent,
there you go,
and I'll beat your brakes off.
There you go. And but he's a big old good athletic looking dog, decent mouth. You can walk to him for a mile and a half with hearing him. Trees a lot of coons. He likes to party sometimes, but he always winds up getting by himself a couple times. So he's kind of a good mixture for me, because I'm one of those guys now that I don't need him to be by himself all the time.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I hunted a dog that was by itself all the time, and but now I'm smart enough to figure out that I'm better off getting a piece out of the truck, one by myself, and I'll win probably 50% of my casts like that. Because Ronnie Bone always told me when I was a youngin' up there at Aurora one day, I blew a gasket, and he said, it was in the youth thing.
Yeah.
He said, "What's wrong, son?" And I told him, and he said, "Let me tell you what." He said, I'm hunting the winningest dog ever. And he said, if I win 50% of my cast, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
And I always remember that stuff. I always took stuff from people like him, and just, I've never been one of those people that think I know it all. I always listen, whether it be you, Tim, Strickland. I talk to Murray Reagan a lot. Ashley.
Congratulations to Ashley.
Ashley Oxidine is my favorite dude. I'm just going to tell you.
He's one of my favorites.
He's my favorite person in the world. I just love sitting talking to him.
Yeah.
I love being around him. He's just a good man.
I've met a lot of successful people, and most of them I just love to death, but Ashley's so humble, and he's so polite, and he's so nice to be around. And what I love about Ashley, I think the most, is he's so proud of his dogs. He's just like that little kid that his first coon dog just treat its first coon by itself. Ashley takes that mentality into these dogs winning at a high level, and he likes them, and kudos to him. I'm glad he done well last night.
Yeah, I always pull for Ashley. He's I don't know if a lot of people know, but he's probably one of the hardest working human beings in the world.
Every time I talk to him, he's working. But
I'm gonna tell you something that's even more. He's a better dog man than most people would ever give him credit for, because I know personally I've seen stuff that he's done to dogs that were in a spell and a rut, and Ashley can bring them back out there. He's just got that touch, and I just think a lot of it's got to be of his nature.
I think his dogs like him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's his nature, like him. And and I'm really pulling for him to win this whole thing.
I hope he does.
He's my man. I'm going to pull for him to the end. I hope him and Dottie bring that truck home, or maybe jumping the black dog. He'd probably be more proud with jumping the black dog, because he's a black dog man.
Jacob was excited last night about old Jumper.
He was. He Jump's done good with him. Jump's done really good.
Is that dog's named Deuce?
His name's Deuce.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The Labrador.
The Lab.
Deuce the Labrador.
The Lab that hunts like a walker. Yeah. That's his title.
I know when Jake sat down with us on the live feed, he was wound up, excited, and I was happy for him.
Me too.
He's a good dude.
He is.
So
really is.
All right, Stephen. We got a lot of work to do this afternoon. It's going to be a long night. This is going to air on, what is today? Saturday? So the results are going to be out by the time this airs. Go to the Joy. It'll be on the Joy Dog Food Events page, and you'll see all our live coverage, and you'll see kind of an inside look at the Pro Sport Truck Hunt. You're going to get to see the Final Four covered live if you go on there and look at the live feed there too. So you guys check it out. And Stephen, it's been a wonderful weekend. I love seeing your home state, and I love having you with me and doing the live coverage. It's nice to have another knowledgeable houndsman in the booth with me.
Well, I don't know about knowledgeable, but I do want to say one more thing, Josh. I really appreciate what you've done with these podcasts.
Thank you.
Because I know you probably don't see it, but a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment, because they've never had this with their sport.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, coon hunters are diehard loving. They love it. They eat, breathe, and sleep it.
You have to do what we do.
And I just wanted to tell you that you do a great job, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Stephen, everything you do for me and for Joy, and Wade and everybody appreciate it. And I'm sure Chris with Houndsman XP will appreciate you sitting down with us just as well. So let's shut this off and go to work, huh?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. This is The Truth on the Houndsman XP Podcast Network, and we will catch you next time.